What's going on, guys? Johnny GB here, bringing you guys the draft analysis for Season 5 of the PMC. I am back for my fourth, 3.5 season of the PMC. I joined halfway through Season 2, and I'm excited to be back, and I'm very excited with some of the changes that are made for the PMC Season 5 this year. I feel like it's going to be a very good season for me, and just for the league in general. Season 4 was not that great, but it's rebounding hard, and it looks like Season 5 is going to be one of its better seasons ever. And so we were pretty much given the third pick overall in the draft, I believe. Can't remember it exactly. Actually, no, we were given the 6th pick in the draft. Yeah, 6th pick in the draft. So some of the mons that I wasn't expecting to get were Celesteela, Tapu Koko, Landorus Eye, and probably Megalopony. So those were mons I kind of just took off my list pre-draft. But fortunate for me, at the 6th pick, Celesteela fell down all the way to 6th. And this is a Pokemon I see drafted in the first, I don't know, 3 picks usually in standard drafts. So being able to get Celesteela at the 6th pick is actually phenomenal. Now, Celesteela, I did make one of my 2 Z users. We had 100 points for Z users, and I used 80 of my points on Celesteela just because of its ability to sweep with Z moves. It has a very diverse move pool, whether physically offensive or specially offensive. Very reliable bulk, very good typing and steel and flying. Now, I know I will have to get an electric and a fire resist later on in my draft, so that's something I know I can play around and plan with. So, Celesteela, I've seen used in stuff like Protect Subseed sets. I've seen Autotomized Sweeping sets. So, it has a lot of good utility with it, and the bulk actually helps it out. So, I mean, stuff like Leech Seed, Giga Drain really help it take on bulky waters that may think that they switch in. And then stuff like Flamethrower and Acrobatics potentially. I've seen Acrobatics Celesteela sets, so it's a Pokemon that I know that it has a lot of different uses. It's not just a sweeping set. It is bulky. It can be used to switch in. The downside is Celesteela doesn't get reliable recovery outside of Leech Seed and Leftovers. So it's something that I do have to keep in mind. It's not something I can repeatedly switch into hits and rely on Leech Seed or Leftovers to keep it healthy. But nonetheless, it's a Pokemon that I thought should have been gone in the first 3 picks. So I'm very fortunate for it to land to me at the 6th pick. Now, coming around to pick number 2 for me, which I think was like the 30th pick in the draft or something around there. Yeah, 30th pick in the draft. I needed a Dragon type, and I did not want to go Salamence. I didn't want to go with Dragonite, and I didn't want to go with like something like Haxorus. So I went with a Pokemon I've actually never taken before, and that's Mega Charizard X. Now, in the PMC, I have used Mega Charizard Y way back in Season 2 for a little bit, but I've never used a Charizard X in any league. And it's a Pokemon that, you know what? Hey, I got a Dragon type, I got a Steel type, I'm on my way. And this is another potential sweeper I have on the team, whether it's Dragon Dance. You can run a bulkier Will-O-Wisp Charizard as well. With its 130 attack, Tough Claws, it's going to be hitting hard. Also can have a specially offensive set potentially run. It has a base 130 special attack stat, so by no means is it weaker, especially offensive. Access to reliable recovery and roost is great. Access to stuff like Dragon Dance to help it sweep, or potentially even Belly Drum if I want to opt that way if my opponent's team is somewhat slower. So Charizard is a Pokemon, again, I'm excited for. Never used a Charizard. I've seen it used well and I've seen it used poorly, so hopefully I can find the middle ground here to find a good use for it. I don't think I'll be great using it, but I think I'll be able to find a good use for the Charizard. So, now one thing I do need to know is I'm going to need good removal because this is 4 times weak to Stealth Rocks. People are going to bring Stealth Rocks for me because I do have a Charizard and I do have some other mons that are weak to Stealth Rocks as well. So I will have to plan around that. Now, Third pick, I just needed to grab a powerful ground type. So usually third round is when you see the ground types start to go. And the ground type I opted for was Mamoswine. This is, again, a Pokemon I've never used. I've seen people use it extremely well. And I've also seen people use this thing very poorly. And it's what I considered one of the overhyped Pokemon in Draft League. I feel like it either does a lot or it does absolutely nothing. You see everybody say, on paper, Mamo destroys that team, and you go into the game and it doesn't do anything. So, one, it gives me a Stealth Rocker, and having the ability Oblivious prevents it from being taunted, so I know I'll be able to get Stealth Rocks. You can use it in a Focus Sash set. You look at its attack stat, again, 130 attack stat, so I got two very good physically offensive Mons and Charizard and Mamoswine so far. The ability to get Freeze Dry helps Bulky Waters not be a reliable switch-in, but again, still a decent switch-in. Base 130 attack with Stab Earthquake is going to be damaging a lot of teams. Priority and Ice Shard is great, especially in a league with Landorus, Eye running around, and several other Pokemon with prior speed that really just deal with my team. My team isn't all that fast, I feel. There's some changes I do have to make to improve that, but I get a Stealth Rocker. I get a very powerful ground type, very good offensive typing for Mamoswine. Defensively, not so great. It's not switching into many hits. But hey, I mean, I got to sacrifice a little bit somewhere. I can't have it all into one Pokemon. But with my next pick, I kind of help the removal situation. Again, Mamoswine doesn't really want rocks, still taking 12% to rocks. Charizard's taking 50%, 25% after I Mega Evolve. So I need some removal, and I opted for Mandibuzz. Now, I'm not very fond of Tier 2, and Tier 2 is just one of my least favorite tiers in most draft leagues. And I was planning to go with Mimikyu, because I just absolutely love Mimikyu, but didn't really get that benefit this time, and Mandibuzz was there. It's a Pokemon that I see used as a very good defensive pivot. With sets like Rocky Helmet, access to Roost helps it out a lot, and it's surprisingly bulkier than I thought. 110 HP and 105 defense is very good defensive stats, especially with access to stuff like Roost, Taunt, Knockoff, Defog, Tailwind. So there's a lot Mandibuzz can do for my team. Tailwind actually really helps with stuff like Celesteela, Charizard, Mamoswine that aren't the fastest Pokemon. I mean, Charizard really needs Dragon Dance if it wants to get above 100 speed. So Tailwind's something nice. Also access to U-turn so that I can run some speed to outspeed some of the stuff that Mandibuzz could potentially creep. That way I can just U-turn out safely and get into one of my threats. So again, it's a nice defensive Mon. Issue is, again, I'm still weak to Stealth Rocks. I got two Mons that are 25 to 50% weak to Stealth Rocks, so I will need to really fix that issue hazard removal wise. Now, I needed a water type because right around the 5th round is when I started to see water types start to go off the board, and I wanted to make sure I got one of the better water types so that I wasn't stuck with Seismitoad again. Yes, I like Seismitoad. It's one of my favorite water types in draft. It's not as bulky as I would have thought, so I needed something that could switch into physical attackers that Mandibuzz can't really switch into, so stuff like Tyranitar and Excadrill, not really Excadrill, but rock types in general. And I needed a good fire resist. Yes, Charizard resists fire, but it's not a great fire resist. Mamoswine, yes, it has thick fat, but again, Mamoswine's not switching into much, so I needed a good fire resist. And Milotic does do the job. Now, this is the 3rd league I've drafted Milotic in, so it's a Pokemon I've grown comfortable with. It has very good physical bulk after you get the Flame Orb on it. It has very good special bulk as well. So it's something that I know I can use Milotic well with stuff like Haze, Ice Beam, Scald, access to reliable recovery. One issue I have had in draft leagues lately is I've drafted a lot of bulky Pokemon, but the bulky Pokemon I draft have absolutely no way of using reliable recovery, so I wanted to make sure the Pokemon that were bulky I do draft do have reliable recovery. So far Mandibuzz and Milotic both fit that description of bulky plus reliable recovery. And then just some cool tech moves like Magic Coat, Mirror Coat, and Haze. Just make Milotic kind of the Pokemon that fits the rest of the glue onto my team. Now, to complete this Fire, Water, Grass core, I needed a good grass type. I needed a couple more hazards set up. And there's a Pokemon I use in tours that I have not used in draft leagues that I've really wanted to use, but never have gotten the chance to use it. Excuse me there, just sneezed. Alright, so the Pokemon I've used in tours but not draft leagues is Roserade. Now, Roserade, to me, is just a very cool Pokemon in general. It gets access to Spikes, Toxic Spikes, so 2 forms of hazard setup, great. Access to Leech Seed, so that's forcing switches. Has 2 very good abilities in Natural Cure and Technician. Technician's good because hidden powers are now doing more damage. It gets access to Black Sludge, so now Leech Seed plus Black Sludge is a lot more recovery. It gets access to reliable recovery and Synthesis. Also can be a Cleric. I do get access to Aromatherapy as well. And it's a pretty decent Choice Scarf user because it does have the base 125 special attack, so it can hit relatively hard with Stab, Sludge Bomb, Leaf Storms, access to stuff like Dazzling Gleam and Extra Sensory. So it has a lot of coverage on it. It gets access to recovery, access to stuff like Stun Spore, Sleep Powder. So I'm very excited to use Roserade. Again, it's been very good to me in tours. Now I need it to kind of take the success I've had with it in tours all the way over to the draft league now, as it's a grass type I've been waiting to use. I've used Delmise, I've used Decidueye, I've used Lurantis, unfortunately. So Roserade's just a one grass type. You know what? Hey, I'm very excited. I finally get to use this Pokemon after I've been trying to draft it for a while. So Roserade is going to be a valuable addition to the team, I feel, and hopefully potentially one of my MVPs. Now, we get into the 7th pick, and it might have been early to draft this, and I'm actually excited I grabbed it where it was. So this Pokemon was in Tier 5, and I feel like it had no business being in Tier 5 at all. I've seen this Pokemon used very well. Its speed stat, access to Quiver Dance alone should not make it a Tier 5. I ended up taking Ribombee with the 7th pick overall. Call it a reach at 7th, but when this thing was Tier 5, I immediately had to take it before somebody else grabbed a hold of it. Now, this is my second Z user. Ribombee was 20 points to use Z Crystals, so I'm okay with only 2 Z users, being Celesteela and Ribombee. So looking at Ribombee, access to U-Turn with 123 attack stat, 123 speed stat, very good already, because I can run a little bit of HP on Ribombee. Ribombee is not all that bulky, but any HP matters at this point. 124 speed, actually, correction there. So I have a very fast Pokemon now. I get access to U-Turn with it. I get access to stuff like Baton Pass. So the issue is I cannot Baton Pass Quiver Dance. So, I mean, yeah, but it's another form that I can actually switch out with. It gets access to stuff like Stab, Bug Buzz, Dazzling Gleam, gets Energy Ball for any water types that want to switch into it. The issue for Ribombee is Steel types. They wall it. HP Fire is all it has to hit it. But it does get access to stuff like Reflect and Light Screen, which can help my team if I'm bringing a frailer team. And the very important one is it gets access to 2 forms of speed control. Sticky Web and Tailwind, which I think are very valuable to my team as it's not extremely fast. So far, Ribombee is my fastest Pokemon, but then you go all the way down to Charizard at base 100 so far. So I have a giant speed gap there, so Tailwind or Sticky Web can actually really help that situation tremendously. Now, it also gets access to stuff like Trick, so I can run Trick sets since Steel types may want to switch into this thing. So, recovery with Roost, a bunch of utility with Screens, Tailwind, Sticky Web, U-Turn. I'm very excited. This Pokemon should not have been Tier 5, And Quiver Dance is there. If I get the opportunity to potentially Quiver Dance sweep, I can go through with it. So Ribombee Tier 5, it had to be taken with the 7th overall pick. Well, not 7th overall pick, my 7th pick of the draft. Now, this is a Pokemon that last time I used it was my first draft league ever 2 years ago. Way back in CBA Season 1. And that is Meloetta. Again, this is a Pokemon I've wanted to draft. I've had it sniped for me. But it's another very good special attacker, so I want to balance out a lot of the physical attackers I have on my team with very good special attackers. And Meloetta fits the role of that very good special attacker. Now, something I'm planning to try this season is the Pirouette form Meloetta. I've never used Pirouette form. And that's just the Relic Song Meloetta. Transforms it into Fighting Normal type with 125 attack, speed stat, very good attack, and so special attack stats. But Meloetta just has the move pool to run physical or special if I do run the Relic Song with stuff like Drain Punch and Focus Punch and Acrobatics. There's a lot Meloetta can do. And it can also be a very good Psychic switch in, as Shadow Ball does not affect Meloetta. Psychic gets eaten up. Now the downside is my Dark Resist so far on the team is the Ribombee and the Mandibuzz. So I don't have much. I do have to worry about being Pursuit trapped as well. So Meloetta is here. It's going to be my special sponge. 128 special defense, 100 HP is going to be phenomenal to switch it into special attacks. So I'm looking forward to finally getting to use Meloetta again after so long. Pretty much 2 years since I've used a Meloetta. I'm hoping it can actually be a very good use to me. Now, here's where the draft starts to get shaky. I really wasn't sure, and this might be my first transaction, honestly, unless I find a good use for it, and that's Lucario. So Lucario is a very good mixed sweeper. It can run Swords Dance, it can run Nasty Plot, gets access to stuff like Extreme Speed for priority, gets access to Bullet Punch for priority, as well as, I believe, Vacuum Wave. So, does it get Vacuum Wave? Yes, it does. So I have 3 forms of priority, which is nice, with 2 different forms of setup. Also access to stuff like Calm Mind, Dark Pulse, so it's a Pokemon I'm just on the fence about. I feel like it has the ability to do all this sweeping. I just don't see it doing the sweeping. Hopefully this season, maybe the first couple weeks, changed my mind on it. But it was just one of those Pokemon. I needed a fighting type to really deal with steel types because I just had Charizard. And not very often I can have Charizard stay relatively healthy to sweep, especially with stuff like Flare Blitz, Recoil, and such. But Lucario does give me that option to potentially sweep, and hopefully I can actually manage to put it to good use. Now, it's not the bulkiest steel type. I have Celesteela for that. It's not the greatest fighting type. There's other better fighting types out there that I would have liked, but you know what? Hey, this will work out for me. And I'll just try it out. If I don't like it, you know what? I can always drop it and find something else to potentially replace it. So when building, I had a speed gap, and I needed to fill that speed gap. It was between 124 and 100. So normally I like to draft something at 110. That's the Latios, Lycanroc, Duskform speed tier. The closest thing I could get to it was Heliolisk at 109. And you know what? I'm okay with it because it has 2 very good stab typings, electric and normal, with a very diverse move pool. Ground types, I have Surf, so the great thing about running Surf is no longer have to use HP Ice, HP Grass, HP Water at all. I can just run Surf and deal heavy damage. The downside is 109 special attacks, not phenomenal, so it's going to be running a boosting item a lot of the times. But on the flip side, I do get access to 3 potential good abilities depending on my opponent's team. So Dry Skin makes this now a water immunity on my team. So looking at my team, I did not have very good water immunities. I had Milotic as a water resist. So Heliolisk gives me the water immunity. Stuff like Sandvale, if my opponent does have a sand team, I can bring Sandvale to counter their sand team. or if my opponent has Sun, whether it's Ninetales or Charizard Y, I can now run Solar Power. So special attack is boosted. The downside is I do lose the HP. So it's a give and take in each one of the abilities here. So it's okay. I'm not overly amazed with Heliolisk. It does give me a fast electric type, which, I mean, pretty much most drafts have. Not all, but most have a fast electric type. I get a speed tier that I needed, and then I just get a good special attacker with a bunch of moves that help it deal with some of the things that switch into it. So ground types can't switch in as freely with Surf now. I also have stuff like Signal Beam, Hyper Voice, Stab, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch. So I have a good Volt turn with Ribombee, Heliolisk, Mandibuzz. I'm happy with it. I'm not thrilled. I'm just happy. And then finally, we are ending the draft with another form of removal, being Armaldo. So this is my fourth form of removal: Charizard, Ribombee, Mandibuzz, and now Armaldo. This gives me a rapid spinner, and I've actually don't know much. It has very high attack stat, 125, slow speed stat, I mean 45. It's not going to really be a sweeper. I don't think I'll really run Rock Polish unless my opponent's extremely weak to Rock and Bug. But you know what? It's usable. Stuff like Swords Dance, Stab X, Scizor, access to Knockoff, Stealth Rocks, Rapid Spin. So it has all the utility, access to Priority with Aqua Jet. So hey, you know what? I'll give it a try. If I don't like it, I can replace it with a different form of removal, make a couple trades and such. But that is the Season 5 team for the Oregon Duckletts. I'm hoping to have a very good season. You guys will see Week 1 next Sunday, so I hope you guys are excited for that. Team Builder will be up on Saturday. I'm going to be making sure I get the Team Builders up for these as well, so you guys can understand what I'm bringing, why I'm bringing it. But with all that being said, guys, I am Johnny GB, and I'm out.